Talk, talking crime, cases, and backing the blue. Now, here are your hosts, Captain Ed Mamet and Detective Kevin Schroeder.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Cop Talk. I'm Kevin Schroeder, your host, and I'm here with the good captain.
Hello, WABC listeners and YouTube viewers. Today we have a great guest that we've had before, and he's our favorite. And we also have retired Sergeant Rory Capra.
Hello, Captain Ed and Detective Kevin.
So today we're going to do a roundtable with Rory Capra, who is retired Sergeant NYPD, and GOP candidate for New York City Mayor, Curtis Sliwa. Welcome, fellas.
Oh, see, I'm wearing my back to blue.
I like
it. Back to blue
like
outfit here. Because somebody's got a back to blue outfit.
Traded the red in for the blue.
Change from the red
Absolutely.
jacket. I like that.
And altogether, it's red, white, and blue.
You know, it's very fortuitous. You're inviting me to do Cop Talk 5 years after the start of the riots in New York City, George Floyd, the summer of 2020. And who was he? The head of patrol, Terrence Monahan took a knee in Washington Square Park to Hawk Newsom of Black Lives Matter and surrendered New York City to them. And that night was when they started the riots. Remember, Macy's was all boarded up. The next night, I got my jaw broken as we battled Black Lives Matter and Antifa because Bill de Blasio ordered the cops to stand down. But how could the police department take a knee to a guy? Remember his famous words, "We're going to burn this city down." And that was the end. That was basically the surrender. And it was chaos thereafter.
5 years ago, as you say, Curtis. So let's wind back. If you were mayor back then, what would you have done different? I'm sure a lot, but just give us some
Well, first of all,
ideas.
remember, under de Blasio, all of a sudden you didn't need a permit to have a demonstration, march, sound permits, all of that went out. Remember, we were in lockdown and pandemic, orders of Andrew Cuomo and Dr. Fauci, but they didn't have to wear masks. They didn't have to separate. Somehow, I guess, when you're demonstrating and then it leads to rioting and looting and shooting late at night, you were immunized from corona, and then it became COVID-19. So I would have demanded, wait, hold on. Where's your permit? You know, box of men. Now they call it kettling. You know, kettling guys on the bicycles and all that. Eric Adams signed that consent decree order that said, we won't do that anymore. And plus, we will pay damages to Black Lives Matter and Antifa. And then when he was asked, why did you wave the white flag? Why did you capitulate? Why did you give in? Oh, the Corporation Council made me do it. That means cops have almost very little leeway now when it comes to these, especially the pro-Palestinian demonstrators who basically break all the rules, and there are little, if any, consequences. I hold the mayor responsible now, obviously de Blasio back then, but the rules were pretty clear. Yes, everybody's entitled to a permit to demonstrate. You get a sound permit. You could turn that around in 24 hours at one police plaza. Right. But then you got to stay within the confines. You can't just go rampaging through the streets. That happened when de Blasio was mayor early on in his administration, long before the lockdown and pandemic.
Yeah, he used the term soft touch.
Soft touch.
Soft touch. And police handling a riot, a soft touch. And mounted, as you remember, was not used. It was in reserve, doing nothing.
And I think when all was said and done, 300 vehicles vandalized, destroyed, cops assaulted nonstop. And then they ended up charging like 150 cops with violations for defending themselves and trying to keep the mob back. So the cops were on the run. And I'll never forget sitting with Richard Brea. He was the deputy inspector of the 4-6 precinct in Rikers Avenue, which had always been a sanctuary for me when the cops were opposed to us when I started the Guardian Angels, nearby there on Fordham and Webster. And so I came in, and Brea I knew for many years. I think the 3433 was a Dominican-American, went to Richmond Hill High School. He loved me and a cop. And then they told him, you were kettling people on Fordham Road. You were kettling people on 183rd Street, Tremont. He goes, yeah, they were looting. They were attacking people indiscriminately. Oh, you can't do that. We got to hold you responsible and members of your staff here, the 4-6. And if you remember, they passed new rules and regulations. Commissioner Shea, who never came out of the eagle's nest at one police plaza, in which basically it wasn't just soft touch, it was no touch. And Bria retired the next day. They had the helicopter fly over against the wishes of Shea and de Blasio. The men and women of the department came out because they knew this was a great cop. He was a cop's cop. He wanted to be a cop as long as he could possibly be a cop, and he turned in his badge symbolically because he said, I can't be a deputy inspector. I don't know what instructions to give the men and women every night as Black Lives Matter and Antifa were rampaging through the Bronx, but the news wasn't giving that much attention. You know, they were all focused on downtown Brooklyn, Barclays Center, and obviously Manhattan.
Yeah.
Well, the big mistake I think the department made was confining them to not letting them go to Manhattan. It's easy. You block off the bridges. They not be able to get to Manhattan. And they let them get to Manhattan where they rampaged.
Also, well, before, remember, in Occupy Wall Street, Bloomberg was twiddling his thumbs for like 30 days. Finally, Esposito says to him, we got to stop this. They're getting stronger. More people are coming. Well, it's private property, Zuccotti Park. He said, every day they leave the encampment and they go rampaging through the streets. Let me stop them. They're going to go over Brooklyn Bridge, remember?
Oh, absolutely.
Yep.
And then finally, Bloomberg capitulated. But for a month, it's private property. And he had no street sense. You know, he knew Wall Street. He knew nothing about the streets. Yeah. Thankfully, Esposito and Kelly and the rest were able to crack down on
Joe
that.
Esposito, great man.
Yeah,
one
of the most dynamic and beloved leaders of the NYPD.
Absolutely. And then let's go back 5 years ago. Where was the mounted unit? Right? We have a mounted unit. This is their specialty, right? Demonstrations and protests, and they didn't utilize them.
I saw them in the riots in Tompkins Square Park. I had an apartment across the street with Lisa, my wife at the time. We could actually go onto the small rooftop next to our apartment, and we watched. They had the helicopters come in, you know, they went to Treeside. The anarchists, the demonstrators, you know, were rallying around. Then they brought in the mounted unit and the remnants of the Yipsters from Abby Hoffman and Jerry Rubin, although they were taking Geritol at the time, were throwing marbles on the ground, hoping that the mounted would end up slipping and the horses would fall. And so they were sideways first, which is about the equivalent of having like 10 cops, and then naturally the cop on top can see everything. And then they turned around, and the order, charge, and all those tough guys and tough gals were running. I mean, let's face it, no matter who you are, we've not grown up with horses in the city of New York. So when you see that big horse that the cops know how to control and they're coming at you, you flee.
Oh, absolutely.
You flee and you break up.
And if you ever get a hindquarter that hits you, it really knocks you over.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think is going to happen tomorrow with the demonstration?
I don't think much of it. I think now pretty much look at all the characters involved. Remember at that time, Bill de Blasio and Eric Adams, the Brooklyn borough president at the time, every day they were painting Black Lives Matter on another street. They didn't speak out against the demonstrations. In fact, some of those now that were part of the defund the police movement, because eventually, remember, there was Occupy City Hall. It was all with that for a month. They desecrated all the buildings. They hung an effigy, a cop. It looked like a pig. And the only time that de Blasio cracked down on him, when they desecrated the bronze plaque to David Dinkins at 1 Center Street, because that's named David Dinkins. Oh, that's it. Now we got to put it down. For a month. These anarchists controlled everything. Yeah. And right on the cusp, then they had a vote in city council to defund the police of $1 billion. Police Commissioner Shea signed on to it. That was a disgrace. And then all of these so-called pro-cops now, right? Justin Brannan, he wants to be the controller. He voted to defund. Richie Torres, right? He voted to defund. That's why when I see all these guys and gals, I say, you voted to defund. No, I didn't. Yes, you did. And now all of a sudden, those running for mayor, oh, we want to hire police. Remember, Cuomo said, I can understand what Black Lives Matter is talking about. And in fact, if police departments don't reform from Buffalo to New York City, we're going to restrict your funding. They were all together.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they've reinvented themselves as if they're quasi law and order. 5 years later, they think we don't remember. I remember.
Oh, yeah.
I remember because I got my jaw broken out there on the night of June 2nd, right opposite NYU, when we decided we were going to take a stand because they were looting nonstop. The cops passed us by, said, don't knock yourself out, Curtis. Guys, gals of the Guardian Angels, you better get out of here because de Blasio has told us to stand down.
Yeah.
And we fought him.
Yeah.
And one of the campaign slogans now is they're going to have a cop on every train. That's absolutely ridiculous.
That's hilarious. Where are they going to get
Where you get the manpower? People are retiring like crazy.
Exactly.
Not only that,
that
but
was kind of like a
Black
throwback
Lives-
to the 90s. We had a cop on every train.
Yep.
Sure.
Right, but now Black Lives Matter, the new acronym is Big Large Mansions. They used all that shakedown money. They bought mansions all over the country in Canada. They're in the real estate business now. And you say, really? What good came from that other than chaos and anarchy?
Right.
And all it did was handcuff the police. The police all throughout the country have never returned to the prominent position that they had in the streets of their respective cities since Black Lives Matter and Antifa rampaged in that summer of 2020 and got away with it. There were no consequences.
Yeah. Rory?
Well, Curtis, just to switch gears for a minute, in keeping with your red, white, and blue theme that you're wearing, we're just coming off of Memorial Day. So I understand that you were out in the streets, you were busy, while other people were at the beach. You were out on the campaign trail, and you were in different areas of the city. Can you tell us a little bit about what happened
Rory,
for Memorial Day?
Even when I haven't run for mayor, I ran for mayor 2021, running again. Every year, I'm at these Memorial Day parades and commemorations. And by the way, people say, oh, happy Memorial Day. What a gabon. There's nothing happy about Memorial Day. You're commemorating the war dead. So I educate them.
Yes, absolutely.
But we're always at 5 parades in the city, I and the Guardian Angels. So Forest Hills and then College Point. College Point is like the old traditional one. Then the next day, Bay Ridge, Staten Island. That's a huge one. And then we finish up Little Neck, Douglaston. And that pretty much ends the 2 days of commemorations and parades. And this year was incredible. You had Scott Stringer, he went to 2. Adrienne Adams, she went to 2 in Southeast Queens. The mayor, he went to the Intrepid wreath laying, and then also one in Glendale. I went to 5. And Andrew Cuomo, the son of Queens, didn't go to any, not even a wreath laying. And you say when he was governor, he'd always go to Little Neck, Douglaston, because he used to have a house there. First off, if you're afraid he's going to get a bad reaction, it's the only time that politicians come together, that and 9/11, the commemoration. Yeah. Sure, you might go to another event and there'll be a hostile crowd. I've never heard anyone booed, any elected official, for participating in a Memorial Day wreath-laying commemoration or parade. So he was hiding. I mean, the guy's paranoid, like, I got to always protect my image. Wait. Nobody was going to boo you. In fact, they would have welcomed you back. But the man who says, I'm the Queen's boy, couldn't even go to not one over 2 days. And that's a disgrace. I mean, come on. You can't find some time you're running for. Now, we know Mondami wouldn't be at a commemoration, but
exactly.
Cuomo pretends now he's Mr. Law and Order, of which there is no law. There was no law, no order when he was governor. That's
after he sanctioned the release of 41 parolees who killed cops.
Right, exactly.
Yep. He has 12 of those that are on the parole board that were appointed by him. Hochul has an additional 4. I don't think there are any holdovers from Pataki. So there's 16. And they continue to churn out paroling cop killers.
Yeah.
And we're waiting on one now. That was the parole board has apparently quietly held off the parole hearing until after the primary.
Yeah, David McLaren.
That's correct.
The shooter of Officer Byrne.
Yes.
Late February 1988, he's assigned to watch the witness, Arjun, in his house because he was going to testify against Pappy Mason. And you had Pappy Mason, then you had the Supreme Team of Griff. You had Fat Cat Nichols. They were basically running the streets, all the crack cocaine trade. And they were so bold, Pappy Mason, he decided, hey, well, Fat Cat Nichols executed his parole officer, Rooney. I'm going to execute any of those cops. And apparently a week before, there were 5 of them. They picked straws who was going to actually sneak up to the police officer and shoot him in the back of the head. I think they shot him 5 times. And McClary drew the store, and he did it. And now they're thinking of paroling him, and even if they don't parole him this time, because they moved it, as you mentioned, a few months up, so it wouldn't impact on Cuomo, who's no friend of the police department, but a friend of cop killers. But that means, let's say they don't give him parole this time. Another 2 years, another opportunity of parole. There were 43 cop killers paroled in 8 years, most of it Cuomo's term in office. That is an incredible number. That means as soon as they came up, Cuomo was, basically massaging his parole board members, of whom he appoints, turn them loose. And they were some of the most heinous crimes ever committed against police.
And he claimed that he can't do anything about it after their appointment, almost like they have lifetime appointments.
Yeah, well, they're friends of Cuomo, just like those that were appointed by Hochul. They serve at the interests of the person who appointed them, and Cuomo has never pulled their chain. Never. Remember, at that time, understand, he was trying to go to the far left. He was realizing everybody who was running for president before Biden jumped in was extreme left. So he had to, match their bona fide every day. He was doing those PowerPoint presentations, telling us how he was going to save us during COVID. He thought he was on his way to the Democratic nomination, but he realized everybody who was going to be running at that point was to the left. So he tried to out-left them. Yeah. Now, it's sort of like when we have the debates, we should all clear off the stage and let the old Cuomo debate the new Cuomo, the new reinvented Cuomo. But wait, you were for no cash bail. You were for raise the age. You were for all the things that handcuff the police. You were for removing their qualified immunity, even though you are protected now. We've paid out $63 million, and that bill is growing. Tom DiNapoli, the state controller, has said to defend him on those sexual harassment suits, including one by a female state trooper that he has called a liar. So he's basically called a law enforcement official. Remember how he picked this young lady? She was on another detail. He said, I want her on my detail. Oh, it's a little unusual. And then I don't think people understand that there has to be a state trooper in the governor's mansion at night, because when Mario, his father, was a governor, somebody broke in from nearby Arbor Hills. So somebody always has to sit in the living room. They got to, patrol around. So apparently this a young female state trooper did a check on Cuomo in the bedroom, which you're supposed to do, make sure. And all of a sudden, Cuomo claimed that his Italian got the best of him, blames it on his culture. But apparently, according to the lawsuit, he was over the top with that state trooper. And now they call her a liar. All 13 women are liars. Well, let's just focus on the state trooper. She's still active. He's called her a liar. It's sort of like, excuse me, that's law enforcement. Everywhere you go with Cuomo, he tries to reinvent himself. And when it came to the cops, he couldn't have done any worse a job of feeding kryptonite to them and weakening their ability to do their job, yet always protected.
And also an important point is he's covered by qualified immunity, which he was in favor of taking away from the cops.
As are all elected and appointed officials. The only one stripped of it by the city council 2019.
And the state.
Right. Are the police officers. So as mayor on day one, I'm going to say either we moved to give them back their qualified immunity, or I'm not taking it, and everybody else should set the same example. Because look at how many judges have unfairly sent guys away, 25 years, DAs. I mean, think of all the people who have done real harm to people, and they're protected from personal lawsuit. So we're not going to protect the cops who are so poorly paid. First 5 years, they're living in their mother's basement, sleeping on a Castrol convertible. And nobody moves to improve that situation. And now look at recruitment, how bad it is. Yeah. How bad it is.
Oh, it's horrible. Let's talk about Columbia University and the demonstrations. What's your thoughts on that?
Columbia University. Well, the mayor has always hid behind the fact, well, it's private property. We couldn't be invited in because it was private property. I remember because it's a rite of passage for radical students to take over Hamilton Hall, which is that building that they took over this time that the police finally had to take back. when from the river to the sea people, the supporters of Palestinian rights decided that they would take over Hamilton Hall. Hamilton Hall, going back to
68.
Students for a Democratic
In
Society.
1968, they took it over.
Right, Mark Rudd.
Mark Rudd.
Right, and then it was John Lindsay again. Oh, should I go in? Should I not? You had the tactical patrol force, remember, with the hats and bats, waiting in buses for the orders to go in. And then eventually they went in, and some of the cops were seriously injured in taking back Hamilton.
Yeah, well, I think last time we talked, a fellow I worked with in the 79th Precinct was in TPF, and kid jumped out the window, landed on his back, and broke his back. He was retired, and he suffered terribly all his life. Recently died.
But remember, they've had Hamilton Hall taken over a few times over the years. And this idea that you can't go onto private property when somebody has basically taken over a building or is doing harm to people is specious. The NYPD, who's going to stop them? Well, what? The 2 Columbia security officers who can't even stop them from taking over the library recently are going to stand there, well, guys, you can't come in here. Right. That is nonsense.
But Columbia allows it to get out of control.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden, okay, now we need NYPD to come in and clean it up. Then there's all kinds of allegations, too much excessive force. Well, guess what? If Columbia didn't let it get out of control, if you shut it down right away, we wouldn't be in this predicament.
Exactly. And the other thing is the mayor, instead of going up there, decided he had a meeting with the Pope. So he went to Rome instead. The Pope actually blessed him for allowing in so many illegal aliens. This is the Biden from Brooklyn then. Oh, thank you, Pope. And he totally avoided dealing with Columbia. He left it to the department, and eventually they got control. But look, you see how from time to time, these pro-Palestinian protesters that always turn into assaulting people or assaulting cops are able to do it again and again and again because of the DAs also, especially Alvin Bragg, who just cuts them loose. Cuts them loose like he does all criminals. God forbid it's a cop in the line of duty who uses any kind of physical force. Alvin Bragg and the rest are scrutinizing it. Let's send it to the Civilian Complaint Review Board,
This National Foster Care Month, Marine Toys for Tots is providing hope to children who need it most. Staff Sergeant James Caldwell, who grew up in foster care himself, shares that while handing out gifts at a Toys for Tots distribution event, a little girl looked up at him, reached into her bag, pulled out a stuffed animal and said, "Someone needs to make sure you get a toy too." That simple gesture embodies the heart of Marine Toys for Tots, ensuring every child, including those in foster care, experiences the kindness that can transform their future. Visit toysfortots.org today.
It's another scam.
Not too well publicized is the fact that the DA in the Bronx is behaving in a similar way as Bragg.
Yeah, Clark, who is a former judge, I might add. Darcel Clark is the female version of Alvin Bragg, but the Bronx doesn't get the same amount of attention as Manhattan. But you're right. Cuts them loose. Sort of like when D.A. Johnson, remember they swapped out? D.A. Johnson in the Bronx would always cut the criminals loose. Then he became a judge. And Darcel Clark became the DA. It's like swapping places. But they're both defending criminals. In the Bronx, I've been in enough cases there to know if you wear the blue of the Crips, you're going to have jury nullification. We love Crips. If you're a cop going before jury in the Bronx, you could forget about that. They see blue, instead they see red. Time and time, they will side against the police department over and over. The Bronx is the worst place for police to get jacked up in the criminal or the civil court system there.
Yeah. Cap?
We talked in the past about the EDPs in the subway and on the street. And you had comments then. Has your position changed in any way about how to handle with them, how to deal with them?
Emotionally disturbed persons are everywhere. They're in the parks, they're in the streets, and they're in the subways. And every time I hear, we're going to send out mental health care experts with the police. We don't want the police dealing with this. And they never do it. Although they spend millions of dollars. There's all kinds of agencies that are supposed to be doing this. We as volunteer guardian angels do more helping the homeless and emotionally disturbed in the subways than any of them. And I asked the cops, look, it's rush hour. The guy is spread all over the seat. People are standing back. The smell is nauseating. It's not good for him, and it's certainly not good for the image of the city, the tourists looking at, or the people who pay their fare and those who jump the fare. They have to deal with this. Oh, we're not permitted to take them off. What? We've been told they have rights, and we'll get sued. Okay, I get it. You don't want to be personally sued, but the mayor should be telling the Corporation Council 1,000 guys and gals who have barnacles on their backside because they have no calluses on their hands. All they do is settle. You know, they got a stamp. Settle. We're being sued. Settle our tax dollars. And then at night they go out for cocktails and they have a nice meal at our expense with their adversaries. The next day, settle. And my attitude will be fight. We're going to lose some. We're going to win some. But you got to show the people that you're willing to fight for them, especially the cops, correctional officers. They have the toughest job in the city. I've been in Rikers so many times. It's pretty much a perpetual 911 call for 12 hours if you're on a 12-hour shift, 8 hours plus the 4 hours virtually that is demanded of you in overtime. You can't go into the bubble. They put gang members of the same gang together. So the gangs control Rikers, the Bloods, the Crips, Trinitarios, MS-13, these crazy Venezuelans. It's like, okay, guys, we stand on the outside as long as they don't break out. That's pretty much what it's been relegated to, and I want to keep Rikers Island open. None of these community jails. That's nonsense. That's only spreading the problem. Keep it on Rikers. Maintain it. When Bernie Kerrick was the head of corrections, I not only was out there broadcasting, I taught in the high school, I lectured the inmates. I didn't walk around thinking somebody was going to slice my throat. Nowadays, they don't allow for any of that. They can't. They've lost control of Rikers Island.
Curtis, that's an interesting point that you bring up. I think you were the only candidate that's mentioned now about Rikers Island and the possibility of retaining it, keeping it open.
So look, the feds now run it.
Yeah.
How disgraceful is that?
Yeah.
That the federal government has been put in charge of Rikers Island. Oh, Eric Adams, he says, I say, as now he becomes the puppet of Donald Trump. The president calls up, hey, Eric, I'm watching you on video cam right now. Jump, Eric. How high, Mr. President? Not high enough, Eric. So he will do whatever it is that Trump and Tom Homan tell him to do, because without which he would have been in jail. He would have been in a cell with Bobby Goldbars Menendez, who was taking money from Qatar and Egypt, because he was taking money from Turkey and Red China. He's the luckiest guy alive. So if the president tells him to jump, he asks how high. So now all of a sudden he's saying, no, we don't want to move him off of Rikers. Well, wait a second. You're the one that joined that movement, as did Cuomo. Cuomo led the movement with Preet Bharara. They were the first two, so you got to close Rikers. Now Cuomo, in his reinvention, no, we shouldn't close Rikers. And they're banking on the fact that everybody is stupid and nobody will remember. And obviously, cops know, law enforcement knows. They know how this guy has basically tried to spin everything in reverse just to get elected mayor. But he hates cops. He's done everything to make a police officer's life miserable, and including correctional officers.
True.
Going back to you mentioned gangs before, one of the candidates, or maybe more, is in favor of eliminating the gang database. Now, when I was in the intelligence division, we maintained that gang database. It was very important. If you eliminate it, you got a problem. What's your thoughts on that? Would you allow that to continue?
Sure. A lot of it has to do, at a young age, you got caught up. Maybe you got tatted up. Like a giraffe on your neck, on your forehead, your knuckles. It's like, And then maybe you took a different path. Well, number one, why are you wearing the tats? Why are you still affiliated? Why do you have conversations in which you glorify your days as a gangbanger? If you don't want to be on that gang list, well, then you better come up with some damn good, solid information that you are no longer affiliated, hanging out with them, or having anything to do with them. Because, look, the police department's intel is not as good with gangs as it used to be, because they used to infiltrate. And they used to have snitches. You pay them money, which is how you get information. They don't do that any longer. So you got to have a solid gang list. Now, are there some men and women on there who shouldn't be? Of course. But you got to prove you join them. Now you got to prove you're not a member of them. Right. The onus is on you. And why are you still wearing the tats? They have laser removal now. You see all these stars and starlets who are tatted from their their nose to their toes. They're all getting them removed. Justin Bieber, Pete Davidson, they're all getting them removed. You get them removed.
Yeah.
But if you're wearing them, that means you're probably still affiliated with them, even though you got older.
Rory?
Curtis, I often refer to you as the quintessential New Yorker. I don't think there's an area in this city that you don't know and haven't visited, and I don't think there's a community within those areas that you don't have some type of a connection with. Can you tell us, for your campaign this time around, are you expanding your base?
I am expanding the base because the last time around, even though I lost to Eric Adams, but I did warn everyone he would be corrupt and we would have chaos, and oh boy, did we.
Yeah.
But now I'm going to be facing potentially 5 in the final. I'm the 5th. So you're probably going to have Cuomo, the Democrat. You're going to have Zoran Mandami, the magnificent, right, Working Families Party. You have Eric Adams, whatever he calls himself that day, independent line. You'll probably have this guy, Jim Walden, and you'll have Curtis Sliwa. I'm a Republican, and I also am running on the line, Protect the Animals line, because we don't want dogs or cats or animals slaughtered in the shelters, which they unfortunately end up having to go through. And so I offer enough variety. I was the first Republican ever to win the Asian vote. Even Rudy, as great as he was, couldn't win that. Bloomberg couldn't bribe them over 12 years to vote for him. I won that vote. We're on the cusp of winning the Latino vote. So now I start with 30%. Even the Cuomo team has admitted, hey, watch Sliwa. He starts at 30. If he gets 35, he's the mayor. So now I'm able to spend more time in the areas I won, that I beat Eric Adams in 14 assembly districts that were predominantly Democrat. I beat him in. Now I got to build on that. But they're going to come hard on me because Cuomo wants some of those same votes, especially of the Italians. I got a vowel at the end of my name, and he'll speak a little Italian. Even though I'm part Italian on my mother's side, my last name, Sliwa, has a vowel at the end of the name, and I said I can speak more Italian than Andy Cuomo can, that's for sure.
Curtis, have you met with any of the police unions here in New York City yet?
I was upstate New York at a female women's Republican conference, and they were having the annual commemoration up there for police officers fallen in the line of duty. Very small contingent went up. A lot of the cops were complaining that Jessica Tisch does not seem to prioritize that as previous police commissioners have. There wasn't a very large contingent. They say they went to Washington for that week, National Police Week, where they do the candle lighting and the commemoration. The premier police department in all America. All of a sudden, I guess she's cooked the numbers, too much overtime, too much expense. Hey, lady, this is part of your job as police commissioner. Always remember the fallen. Always be there. It doesn't matter what the expense. But she's a bean counter. And so when I was up there, I saw the PBA president and some of the delegates. They were standing there, and I came up to them. I might add very brusquely. He said, no Cuomo. So I said, you probably go with Adams. You probably won't go with me. But it better not be Cuomo. It better not. Or I'm telling you, I will be your worst nightmare. And the other delegates were nodding. The PBA chief. If I was with the former head of the PBA at the annual St. Patrick's Day Parade in Bayside along Bell Boulevard. And even he said, no, we can never go with Cuomo because of him paroling cop killers. But I know the Cuomos are working. Patty Lynch, we'll never go with them. I said, Patty, I don't know. It's how Cuomo operates. I said, I can understand they probably go with Adams, which I don't have a problem with at this particular time, because of the contract and other things. I don't think he's the most pro-cop. I think I am. But it would really be disgraceful, Ashanda, if the PBA were to go with Cuomo for all the things he has done to hurt policing because they're hedging, because they think he might win. A lot of unions do that to the detriment of their members. It's sort of like the fire department union did that. I said, whoa. I was with you guys for the firefighters who didn't want to get vaxxed. And Cuomo, first de Blasio, and then Adams wanted fired. Did you not remember that? Well, come on, Curtis. You got to embarrass them.
Right.
But I think in retrospect, a lot of the men and women I've run across, they don't listen to their leadership when it comes to elections. And a lot of them, as you know, don't even live in New York City, so they can't even vote in New York City elections. But could you imagine if the PBA would have endorsed Cuomo? How would they face the membership or the retirees who know more about that? Tier 6 also. We could go right on down the line. You know, the municipal workers not being entitled to the health care that they were promised. Now he says, oh, no, I'll give it to him. He didn't say anything back when it became an issue. And Adams, you know, he ran against me. And thank you, Captain Ed Mamet. He said, this is a big issue. And remember, I was a municipal worker. I know. And then right away he said, no, we're going to do it the UFT way, Mogu, Aetna. You know, so the two Adams, Eric, Adrian, and Aetna, destroyed the municipal workers who have won time and time again in court the appeals process. You would think as mayor, first thing in, January 1st, I said, Corporation Council, we surrender. Goes back to the old plan. Why does Eric make all these things personal, Adams? It's always personal. But it was okay for Kyrie, remember Irving of the Nets, and Aaron Judge not to be vaxxed. That was okay. Those were his friends, celebrities. If you're a celebrity, you get everything with Eric Adams, who's there to the break of dawn. You know, he's the nightlife mayor, and he earns it every night. But if you're an average, everyday, working-class person, forget about it.
Curtis, you getting back to the retirees, I understand that you have received the endorsement of the group that represents 250,000 New York City retirees.
Yeah, in fact, I debated all the Democrats on the stage at City University. I was invited to debate. And Brad Lander actually said, you know, I agree with Curtis on 3 issues. This is not good. I haven't been invited to a debate since. Because what I'm talking is common sense. It's not so much political. It's like you promise these men and women, you're talking $600 million. You found $7 billion for the migrants. Where did you find that money? So you're not going to take care of our own first. You're going to go with this Aetna plan that even the UFT has given up on because Mobu was afraid he might get ousted as the president of the union. And yet the stubbornness of Eric Adams to insist, no, fight in court. That means all these retirees have to pony up money to pay for the lawyers to go into court over and over again. That's disgraceful, but this is so typical of politicians. Look, Cuomo with Tier 6 on the state level. Then the other day, he's in front of the UFT. You can forget Tier 6. What do you mean forget it? You're the one who put it in place. It's almost like, remember when we were kids, we had the Etch-a-Sketch?
Yeah.
You put up all of Cuomo's record, and he just wants to Etch-a-Sketch. Forget Tier 6. How you going to forget Tier 6? You put it into place.
Yeah. Rory?
Yeah, your knowledge on these issues is tremendous, Curtis, and you're on point with all of it, and you keep informed on all those issues. In line with that, are you also working now on an economic plan for the city and how you would handle some of these issues?
Well, first off, I have to defer to Captain Ed Mamet. He's been my mentor on these issues, you know, and involving the unions, involving the pension plans that they've been offered, how they're getting screwed. The other thing, one thing before we talk economics. So here's Jessica Tisch, past the great Poupon. She's walked a beat from the Metropolitan Museum to her brownstone between Bloomberg and Elliott Spitzer on 72nd. Okay, she went in. She had a tough job trying to undo the disaster on the 14th floor with the previous police commissioner. And then obviously Jeffrey Madry, who couldn't keep his rocket in his pocket and was giving women of the police department overtime. So now because she wanted to take a stand against the 13th floor and Jeffrey Madry, she cut overtime for the regular cops, some of whom who need it, who want it, who can't make ends meet without it. So she throws the baby out with the bathwater because what would she understand? She's a billionaire. Does she have to worry about paying her bills week to week? Does she have to worry about survival? And then you have forces in the city. Oh, they all got to live in the city. Oh, all of you say it's not affordable to live in the city. Yet a cop on their side, how are they going to live in the city? So they got to drive like five hours one way, 5 hours back. Some of them we know live outside the boundaries because it's the only affordable place they can. You know, I'm amazed. DC 37, I see them lining up at the Port Authority at 4:30 getting on the red bus to the Catskills, right? No, excuse me, to the Poconos.
Right.
2 hours away, you can get a nice little piece of land, like $150,000 for a house, better school system, better quality of life. So they'll go 2 hours one way, 2 hours back. Oh, they shouldn't be doing that, Well, they do it because they don't have a choice. You don't have affordable housing in the 5 boroughs. But notice how they always mention the cops. Yet if you're a member of the UFT, you can live in Hartford, Connecticut. As long as you can get to the job, nobody cares. Why do they keep saying cops have to live in the city? Mm-hmm. How many cops who've died in the line of duty of late were residents of Long Island? Well, not residents of the city. Did they work any less because they were residents of Long Island? No, it's such a specious argument. It's such an anti-cop argument. Such an anti-cop. And Cuomo, Hampton's Cuomo, right? Oh, I live on Sutton Place. Yeah. Oh, that's a tough life there on Sutton Place. Let me tell you something.
So, Curtis, I know it's early, but you have any? First of all, would you keep Commissioner Tisch? Would you keep Commissioner Tisch?
I'm a little torn. I've dealt with the cops out in the precincts. Their morale is at an all-time low. I don't think Jessica Tisch has a feel for that. She's spending time, at one police plaza. And like I said, Caban, what a disastrous police commissioner. His flunkies. And then Madry, she had her hands full trying to straighten that out. It is a mess. Oh, my God. And then Timothy Pearson, when he would have to meet with female police officers, he had to have a male monitor watching him. Maybe Cuomo will have to have the same thing if he's lucky enough to get elected mayor. Corrupt banks, unindicted, co-conspirator. He's the head, deputy mayor of public safety. So she has had an incredible tough job. Now she has inherited Kaz Daughtry, the drone man, right? It's every answer to every problem with Kaz. With drones. What the hell is he doing as deputy mayor of public safety? He's lucky to be walking a beat as a sergeant. So I don't think she has the touch to feel for the average cops. Their morale is miserable. I would have to look in a different direction. I would have to give her an A for straightening out one police plaza, but she's a bureaucrat. She's not a cop's cop. You don't have to be a cop to be the police commissioner, but she seems to be insensitive to the average cop's needs, especially when it comes to overtime.
Yeah, my thoughts on that is that you'd have to establish a search committee, to recruit the best. History shows that out-of-towners don't do that well. And there's also sometimes a problem with people that come up through the ranks. It's very hard to find someone in the middle. But I would recommend to you that you establish a search committee that I would like to be on.
See, that Ed has nominated himself.
Yeah,
I
Rory,
concur.
Rory would like to be on.
I concur. Rory, I concur. Kevin, I concur.
And a few
There's
others.
A whole bunch of other guys and gals we know.
I think Ray Kelly would be a good source.
Yes, Ray. He's been a promoter of Jessica Tisch because he got her on board first. But again, she's a bureaucrat. You got to have somebody who has a good sense of what's happening to the cops out in the streets, the subways, and the parks, and the schools. Remember, school safety is controlled by the NYPD, even though they're not cops. And they do a lot of other things that I would not have the police involved with. Animal care and control, why are the police dealing with that? Nobody wants to join that part of the police department. You don't get a promotion. You get no recognition, attention. There are other things that they do. We need to focus the police on public safety. Yeah. Not all these other. I see so many cops running around doing non-police things. Community affairs. I got to tell you, that's going to have to be rearranged because I see a lot of community affairs officers. They're like riding into the sunset with that little pullover there. It's like, no. And also the other thing, put your freaking cap on. I can't even spot some of these cops in a crowd. They all got their hat off. First of all, it's hard to see them, because many other people are taller than them, and they're hiding. And they were on their cell phones. It's like, I can't tell you how many times I walk up to two cops. I said, not for nothing. If I had pulled out a gun, I could have shot you both in the head. Oh. Why do both of you have to be on your cell phone simultaneously? Shouldn't you be walking up and down? Shouldn't you be? It used to be single patrol. I understand why you can't do single patrol any longer because of all the emotionally disturbed out there. But still, and I don't see the supervision out there. I don't see the white shirts out there. I look for those white shirts, that give you immunity. Now, once you get your white shirt to Eric Adams, you're a good test taker, a house mouse, you get lifetime immunity with that white shirt. But what happened to the white shirts supervising these guys and gals? I realize sergeants are very important, but where are the other white shirts? I always used to see them out on occasion. I never see them now. Never see them supervising.
And you love the return of the batons, a.k.a. nightsticks.
Yeah, I mean, think of it. How many times have we seen the suspect having to Greco-Roman wrestle the cops? 3, 4 cops struggling to put handcuffs on. It's a bad look. Everybody knew years ago when the cop took the wooden nightstick out and went like this, boom, that's the Maginot Line. You don't cross. Now they have some Star Wars thing where they go, half the time it doesn't work. It bends, it breaks. You can't even see it. You take that wooden baton out, and everybody knows in the streets, okay, you don't cross that line. But these cops, now they have to learn jujitsu, and God forbid they touch you in the wrong spot. Donovan Richards, when he was the head of public safety for the city council, restricted cops from doing anything. So now cops basically are relegated to not being able to touch, or soft touch, as you described, Captain Ed Mamet, or face potentially being sued, personally sued, which is ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah, I agree. Captain?
You could go on forever.
We can. And I'm sure you'll be back with us as well.
Oh, yeah,
as we
well,
get
this is
closer.
one of the things I think all the candidates who are running for mayor.
Curtis, let me just ask you real quick. Because you are a serious candidate, and this time around, I think more and more people realize that you are a serious candidate. Have you been looking into possibilities of other people in your administration to run other aspects of your administration in other agencies?
Oh, yeah. Well, number one, I'm not...
Anything you want to break on us for our listeners?
I'm not omnipotent. So far, we had de Blasio, who thought he knew everything, Cuomo, who thought he knew everything, Adams, who thought he knew everything, and we now have a complete catastrophe. Complete catastrophe. So I'm one who is honest to say there are certain fields that I am not an expert in managing the city.
No.
So, for instance, Robert Holden, the councilman from Middle Village, a Democrat, was a 40-year teacher. People don't realize it. He already leads Democrats for Sliwa. First thing I would do, Department of Education. Robert, go in there. They spend $41 billion, and we don't see the results of it. It's all top-heavy. They have 13 deputy chancellors. I asked teachers, do you know the name of one? No. 50 department heads. Do you know the name of one? No. And where are they housed? The Tweed Courthouse. So appropriate. The House of Tammany Hall, the most politically corrupt machine. And $41 billion. 1/3 of the kids are truants. You don't have truant officers anymore. You say to yourself, why are we spending all that money? Robert Holden would know. So I'm going to go to people who are expert in their field, and if they give me advice, I'm going to lean on them. How could I possibly say no if I am not familiar with that? You have to rely on your experts. And unfortunately, we are at a time now where they'll have a press conference. Never had this before. You have an army behind them, right? Whenever they have a press conference. I said, what do all these people do? Because they're certainly not doing their work standing like mannequins at this press conference. And they almost never talk. What's the purpose of having this army of so-called experts when the mayor or the governor does all the talking? And I'm saying, you can't possibly be an expert in that field. And yet, oh, no, I know. And they have it as window dressing. Guess what? I tell everybody in the department, if I need you, you're going to be there with me because you're going to be doing the talking, not me. But I don't need you to be window dressing. You got work to do. Get back to doing your work and overseeing your department, of which many of them don't do. They hide in City Hall. I'm not going to be in City Hall. You got to be out in the boroughs, the outer boroughs. I'm the mayor of the outer boroughs, which always get neglected. Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx. Everything is Manhattan-centric. You know, they have these lithium-ion battery warehouses now. Where are they putting them? 38 in Staten Island, Brooklyn, Queens, the Bronx. Not one in Manhattan. It sucks up most of the electricity. Why the double standard? No more shelters, no more migrant shelters. These are all out-of-borough issues, and no more City of Yes, which now allows the city to come in and take residential housing and put up a 40-store living facility that destroys the nature of a residential community.
Curtis, when you're elected mayor, would you move into Gracie Mansion?
Oh, absolutely. Okay. I mean, I need the space.
You gonna bring the cats with you?
Yeah, a few cats inside, a few dogs outside. Yeah.
Now, in the past, I know you didn't want a police detail, okay? But every mayor gets a police detail. You still against what? Gets a police detail. You know, a security detail.
Well, you guys are convincing me I need a police detail. You know, every day people are threatening to snuff me. But then again, you know, my normal life, I was so used to that. It's like, Andrew. But you made a compelling argument. Nancy's making a compelling argument. Clearly now that I legitimately can win this, and they know it. All the opposition knows it. So I may have to avail myself. But the detail may not like the places that I take them. So if you happen to know any of those guys and gals who are part of that unit, let them know Curtis Sliwa goes into places where no other candidates go.
Areas of the city nobody's ever seen before, but you.
I do verticals in the public housing projects. They may not want to do that. They may have said, I did enough verticals.
Maybe you'll be driving them instead of them driving you.
Exactly.
You know I move over, kid. I got it.
No, we're going to have to take the subway most of the times. A lot of times you can't because, you know, you need a vehicle. Right. But a lot of times, guess what, guys, gals, we're going on the subway.
Yeah.
And actually taking you to get from location to location.
Yeah. Sometimes that's quicker than driving, although...
Curtis, one final question for me.
Yeah.
If Cuomo doesn't want to debate, how will you overcome that? Because your expertise is debating. He has the right to refuse, correct?
Only if he had used his own money. But he has signed in to the match, 8-1. He is now having to debate his Democrats in the primary. And he has signed up for the match in the general election, so you're forced to debate twice. You have to. You have no choice.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
Oh, yeah. So let's hope they don't put him in a cone and all the reporters protect poor little Andy. You know, it's like let him have to justify his anti-police stand. Remember, on this, we're coming off of Memorial Day. He stood there and said, America was never that great. Maybe that's why he didn't go to any Memorial Day commemorations or parades or wreath layings, because people would ask him, the sacrifice of these men and America was never that great. The world, many parts of the world are free today because of their sacrifice. How could you say America was never that great? You, a son of privilege, born on third base with the name Cuomo, never had to work a hard day in his life and has been a complete bully. So I welcome getting him, the bully, up on the stage because my whole life has been destroying bullies. In this case, not physically, but I will eviscerate him on that stage. The way, if you remember, Elizabeth Warren did Michael Bloomberg with $1 billion. She eviscerated him. I can't wait to take on Andy Cuomo.
On that note, in closing, Rory?
Oh, I'm good. I defer to you, Kevin.
Captain,
I said
always
it
has
all.
something to say. You good?
Yeah, no. I've said most of the things I want to say. I think Curtis covered just about everything.
Well, let me give you, you see, the one thing I don't do that proves I'm not your typical politician, I haven't told anybody how to get in touch with the campaign.
Well, I was just going to say that.
Well, we usually
Thank you, Kevin.
I always do at closing.
Oh, they say generally 12 times in an interview.
But, Curtis, how could folks get in touch with you in regards to they want to get involved in your campaign,
Right.
they want to donate to your campaign, or help you in any way? How
They
can
want
they get
lawn signs, they want to get the word out.
Absolutely.
You go to Sliwa4NYC.com. So it's SLIWA 4, not the number 4, FOR,
Okay.
NYC.com. And you can find out everything. And then if you want to help, you can certainly help. We can use the money because we're behind everyone else who had an early start campaigning and raising money. And remember, the rich are not backing me. The developers, the realtors, they throw nickels around like manhole covers when it comes to me because I don't have their back. They don't have my back. I am the mayor of the outer boroughs, and that's where my support comes from.
How about anyone wants to volunteer for the campaign?
Oh, of course. We need many volunteers. You know, we have a nice Sliwa from me, a schmott that you put on, nice T-shirt, you run around. May even help, you know, in your neighborhood if you have a crime problem. Oh, you know Sliwa? Oh, okay, I'm not going to mess with you, that's for sure.
Yeah. Sounds good. Well, I'd like to thank our guest, Rory Capra, retired NYPD Sergeant.
Thank you, Kevin.
Curtis Sliwa, you're, we're a big fan of yours. You've been great to the NYPD. We all know that. And I know you're a big supporter. And we wish you luck in the election. And you have our backing. Okay? And we'll wish you luck. And I'm sure we'll be having you back many times before the election. And then after, while you're elected mayor as well.
Definitely. I'll make it a point. And then you can give me a hard time. Say, but you said on Cop Talk this. And then you play it back, and then I'm like, oh, now what do I say?
Yeah, exactly. But I think everyone can back up what we said here today. That's for sure. Captain?
Well, I think it's a great fourth interview. It's the fourth time we've had you on. And I'd like to see you another 4 times.
And they have to share it. When the guys or gals are watching it, share it. Spread it around. You know, it's...
Absolutely.
People have a right to see what the candidate stands for. You're not going to see Cuomo here or Adams or any of the leading candidates. You certainly won't see Mondami, who wants to eliminate the police and eliminate prisons. So you get it from Curtis Sliwa, and if you like what you hear, share it.
Absolutely. On that note, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to Cop Talk. And you can also follow us on X at Cop Talk WABC. That's at Cop Talk WABC. And until next time, once again, I'd like to thank our guest, Rory Capra, the next mayor of New York City, Curtis Sliwa.
And you can also view this on YouTube. See the great Curtis in his uniform, which is different than usual.
Absolutely. So until next time, God bless you, God bless America, God bless our U.S. military, and God bless law enforcement throughout the world. Be safe out there. Thank you.
Hello, folks. Larry Kudlow here. Pay attention, because China is leading the largest anti-American alliance since World War II. One that's already dumped U.S. bonds, grabbed 43 million acres of our farmland, and is plotting to dethrone the dollar. That's why IRA and 401k savers are protecting their savings with gold. Please go to freegoldguide.com/Kudlow or just call 800-621-3908 for your free gold guide on how to protect your wealth with gold 100% tax-free.